Afternoon. I'm Muriel Bowser, the mayor of Washington, D.C., and we are located in the Marion S. Berry building in the District of Columbia. I'm joined by members of my public safety team and our federal partners for a public safety update. Clearly, there is no more important issue in the District of Columbia for us than keeping our community safe. And I want to make it clear that we're using every tool at our disposal to drive down crime and hold people accountable who are committing crime. Today, the Chief of Police will brief you on Operation Trident. We have been able to target offenders, get guns off the streets, and execute arrest warrants. The operation has been a collaboration between MPD, Court Social Services, and Offender Supervision, and the U.S. Marshal Service. It has also been a close collaboration, as I mentioned, with our supervising agencies and in collaboration with our prosecutor. As a city, we know we are seeing juveniles and young adults involved in crimes at a rate that is unacceptable. We also see far too many people on court-ordered supervision who are re-offending. This has been a major concern of ours. We as a government and the community as a whole must focus on everything that we can do in our power among our public safety ecosystem to end violence in our city. In July, I nominated Acting Chief Pamela Smith to lead MPD, and since day one, she's hit the ground running to address crime in all 8 wards. She is focused on building relationships both inside and outside of MPD. One result of that collaboration is a report out today on Operation Trident. I have further said that our policy ecosystem has been disrupted over the last several years, and we must reverse many of those actions. And we are starting that process, but we are not finished. One thing that we know will help continue to keep our community safe is that the Safer, Stronger bill that we introduced to the council in earlier in this year, in the late spring, some elements were passed by emergency, and we hope that the council will pass the entire bill permanently. So we are going to keep working to make sure that we have the laws that we need to deter crime, that we have a policy environment that makes sense and will help us create, to recruit the number of police officers that we need so that we can continue to be responsive. So with that, I want to turn it over to Chief Smith to brief you on Operation Trident.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you all for coming today. We are here today announcing the apprehension of 48 individuals as part of Operation Trident, a 3-day multi-agency targeted effort to arrest violent offenders throughout the District of Columbia. When I was nominated as chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, I focused on strengthening relationships with our law enforcement and criminal justice partners with the goal of working together and to be in constant communication about trends and crime in our nation's capital. And we wouldn't be standing here today to announce these arrests without these vital relationships. As part of those constant conversations and looking into data, MPD, along with the Court Services and Offender Supervision Agency, known as CSOSA, and the Pretrial Services Agency, noticed a spike in arrests and gun-related offenses by supervised defendants. That was a major concern for all of us. So we got together with CSOSA, Pretrial Services, the FBI, the United States Marshal Service, and the United States Attorney's Office and planned Operation Trident to focus on disrupting and reducing gun-related violent crime by non-compliant individuals who are under the supervision of CSOSA and pretrial services. Over the past 3 days, we prioritized wanted fugitives for firearms-related offenses and violent crimes, along with individuals identified as having been a loss of contact, which is a person who failed to report in with the agency. Our teams have executed warrants, search warrants, arrest warrants, and identified criminal activity. We've worked together to take criminals off the street. As part of Operation Trident, we've closed out 72 warrants, and of those, we arrested 48 individuals. There were 24 additional charges for a total of 96 charges, and we've taken 3 firearms off of the street. I want to thank all of the agencies involved in this operation. The partnerships between law enforcement agencies and the United States Attorney's Office couldn't be more important, and I want to thank them for being a vital part of this effort. I will now turn it over to U.S. Attorney Matt Graves.
Thank you, Chief Smith. I am Matt Graves, U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. I want to thank all of our law enforcement partners assembled on the stage today for the successful operation that was carried out over the course of the last 3 days. And I want to pause on our hosts and our newest addition to the team that you see in front of you, Acting Chief Smith, who I didn't have the pleasure of working with much prior to the time that she was named to this role, but she has just been an invaluable partner that has continued the collaborative relationship between the Metropolitan Police Department and the United States Attorney's Office that I saw under Chief Conti and Interim Chief Benedict. This relationship is just vital to our community safety. Our career supervisors and the Metropolitan Police Department's commanders, sergeants, and lieutenants are in contact multiple times a day discussing what we can do to go after the individuals who are driving violence in our communities. But the communication doesn't end there. Not a week goes by that I am not personally in contact with either Acting Chief Smith or Executive Chief Benedict about the pressing issues facing our community. And it's not just informal contacts. We also have formal meetings that are calendared to regularly discuss the violent crime issues that we're all confronting. In fact, it was at the last of our meetings where we were discussing a number of operations that are currently ongoing in the community where we finalized the plans for this operation. Before turning the podium over to Assistant Director in charge of the FBI, Sundberg, I would be remiss if I didn't highlight one fact. There were 3 firearms recovered in connection with this operation. These were all individuals who were under supervision, either while they were awaiting trial or after having gotten the benefit of probation after trial, that had fallen out of supervision and a warrant had to be issued for their arrest. This is just another data point in the point that we continue to make that we are seeing in an alarming trend individuals who are under supervision rearming or arming themselves during the course of the supervision. The ecosystem has to change. The individuals you see assembled before you today need to be given the tools to address this new reality. With that, I recognize the Assistant Director in charge.
Thank you, United States Attorney Graves. Much appreciated, as well as your comments on relationships. I'm Dave Sundberg, Assistant Director in charge of the FBI Washington Field Office. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here today alongside Mayor Bowser, Chief Smith, U.S. Attorney Graves, and our partners at the U.S. Marshal Service, CSOSA, and the Pretrial Services Agency. The work we have done together over the last 3 days to capture these 48 fugitives demonstrates that the vital role that partnerships play in combating crime. But Operation Trident is just one example of the daily collaboration between MPD, the FBI, the Marshal Service, and the other federal agencies, all working to make the district a safer place. Fugitives pose a threat to our communities, whether they're wanted on federal, state, or local charges. So we need to apply our common resources where it will make a difference, regardless of which agency eventually makes an arrest or the prosecution takes place. We have you Deputy United States Marshals, Metropolitan Police Department detectives and officers, and other federal and local law enforcement officers serving as task force officers with the FBI in our spaces on our cases every single day. And we also have FBI agents embedded inside our partner organizations to help bring our resources to bear in their efforts. We are grateful for the resources and partners provided to our task forces, and we know it's not because they don't have enough work on their own, but because they recognize the force multiplying effect that happens when our people are sitting and working together in the same space, Each of these agencies has unique strengths, tools, and techniques, and when we combine our resources to focus on intelligence-driven goals, we can do more to protect our communities than we could any agency by itself. We all recognize that no one agency can tackle crime, especially violent crime, on its own, and I'm grateful to our partners here today for spearheading this operation. The FBI remains committed to teaming with you to bring violent criminals to justice. I thank you, and I'd like to turn the podium back over to Mayor Bowser.
Well, thank you. And I also want to recognize federal partners who are integral to public safety in the district. Leslie Cooper, who is the director of the Pretrial Service Agency, and Richard Tishner, who is the director of CSOSA, the Court Services and Offender Supervision Agency. So with that, we'll take a few on-topic questions. And Chief, if you could be close by. Yes, any questions? Yes, please introduce yourself.
7 News. The police ecosystem, you said, has been disrupted. How has it been disrupted, and what do you see in place to fix that disruption?
I think that we have seen, certainly in the last several years, with COVID, with national unrest that has affected policing nationally, and with some crimes, some laws, quite frankly, that I think have gone the wrong way in supporting a safe community. So we, as I mentioned, have addressed some issues with changes to the law. We're very focused on making sure we can have the number of police that we need, and very focused and working in partnership with all of our law enforcement partners, including the courts. I would also say that we're very focused on prevention, which we're not here to talk about, but we have a number of programs and services that we offer to residents to engage them so that they're not involved in cycles of violence. Yes.
Maybe more for Griff with Fox News, for Mr. Graves, because you're talking about the collaboration in all of this and this major announcement of arrests. But last year, your office declined to prosecute 2/3 of the people MPD arrested. It was like 67%, of which more than 50% were felonies. So I was wondering, can you address the declination of prosecutions and walk us through, has this changed? Because ultimately, the guns and the reoffenders on the streets are coming back.
Thank you. So the rates you're referring to were the fiscal year 2022 rates. The numbers are quite different in fiscal year 2023. We are working on finalizing those numbers and planning to do a press conference where we walk through this. There were a number of unique challenges that started in 2021 and carried over into 2022 that impacted the ecosystem, that in turn impacted us and our ability during that period of time to bring cases. Several of the most prominent of those challenges have been fixed with us working collaboratively with the mayor's office to identify fixes to the challenges that emerged during that period. So that's one point I would make. The other is, and this is something we definitely want to cover at the press conference, there's a little bit of a misunderstanding of how the ecosystem here has been structured. I think some think that the system is designed to result in 100% of individuals arrested being charged. That's not the case. I'm going to go into this in greater depth, but one thing that is unique about this district is we are among the minority of jurisdictions that have mandatory arrest for domestic violence laws, and we actually have the most severe, by our read of it, law of the kind, which basically says whenever officers show up at an incident that involves a domestic dispute, there's probable cause to believe they committed an offense and charge the most serious offense that they believe there's probable cause for. So what that can look like in domestic violence situations where there's often allegations going both ways of both intimate partners conducting violence against the other is charges for both individuals, and if a household object was used during the course of the incident, that now becomes a felony, an assault with a dangerous weapon and whatever the household incident was, plate, vase, whatever. So The system is designed that way because there is a concern with these domestic violence offenses that maybe we don't want to make the call on the scene. Maybe we want to go back, do a little bit of investigation. I get the logic of that system. We're happy to do that investigation and to look at the cases that in a lot of other jurisdictions would never make it to a prosecutor's office. They do here, and people have to understand a consequence of that is there is always going to be a large percentage of cases in this jurisdiction because this is over 1,000 cases a year that are not charged because the victim ultimately doesn't want to go forward, and we have assessed that we're going to respect the victim's wishes. So there's lots of issues like this related to our ecosystem that we will explain. And I think once the public understands these numbers, they're going to have a lot of confidence that most people, the overwhelming majority of people who are arrested for offenses, where there is probable cause, where there's reason to believe we can prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, are charged. And that's particularly true with the most violent of offenses.
Stuff you're saying, the simple takeaway is the numbers this fiscal year are much lower in terms of declination. I mean, I know you're going to do a press conference. I'm trying to get like sort of in a nutshell the takeaway.
Simple takeaway is a majority of individuals for all offenses in fiscal year 2023, in the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2023, have been charged at the time of arrest. For felonies in particular, we continue to charge roughly 90% of our most serious crimes at the time of arrest. And that is something that has been consistent for the last decade.
Very helpful. Last question, just a simple follow-up. You mentioned when you were talking earlier that you wanted, in the collaboration with different law enforcement folks, to be, quote, need to be given certain tools to further help. And this is for you or anybody, Chief, what tools do you need to, try and get this violent crime issue under control? Like, what don't you have that you want?
So with respect to firearms in particular, there are a number of tools. One I will flag is, and let me take a step back and talk about how our system is currently functioning. So our most common charge for an individual who is illegally carrying a firearm is carrying a pistol without a license. Under the DC Code, there is a rebuttable presumption that if we establish that an individual committed that offense by probable cause, they will be held pending trial. In our experience, even though we routinely seek that hold, those individuals are held less than 10% of the time prior to trial. The average sentence, the typical sentence for someone convicted of carrying a pistol without a license is probation. So what that effectively means is for the typical person who is charged with a firearms offense, the only time that they're going to spend in jail is the time between when they're arrested and when they have their detention hearing, which can be a matter of a few days. We can agree or disagree with whether that is the right approach. We have our views. We obviously ask for holds. We often ask for jail time. But that is the system. And if that is the reality, and the data says that gun offenders are most likely to recidivate as compared to non-gun offenders, then we should have tools and there should be agreements reached with those individuals who are given the privilege of remaining in the community that they will agree when they are in public places to consent searches, to confirm that they are not in fact carrying firearms. It's trust but verify.
Daniel Hamburg with DC News Now. I know we've been talking about the emergency crime legislation that was passed this summer. One of those things, of course, was talking about being able to have discretion for judges to hold people pre-trial. So first question is that working? And what more needs to be done? Clearly, all of these people that were arrested in this operation were committing offenses in that pre-trial position.
Or probation. I'm going to ask, and I failed to introduce her, but now I'll introduce her to answer some questions about the emergency legislation as Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice, Lindsay Appiah.
Sure. The basic answer is yes, right? That we are seeing increases in pretrial holds, that the DC jail, which in prior fiscal years, our average population was about 1,800, but this year it had been about 1,200. And so we've seen over the past several months between July and now a population increase of about 350 or 400, which the largest number of individuals at the DC jail are those who are pretrial. So the short answer is that we have seen change in behavior by the courts, including more holds as a result of any number of things. But certainly what we can say is that after the legislation passed, more people are being held.
You mentioned 3 of the people of the 48 arrested had firearms. What other types of offenses were they arrested on in this for reoffending, and what type of offenses were they being held for in the first place?
I think for the most part, they had a warrant because they were out of compliance with their supervising agencies, and I think there's a range of original offenses.
What sort of supervision was being done before this operation?
I will turn to Ms. Cooper and Mr. Tishner.
Hi, I'm Rick Tishner from CSOSA, the director of CSOSA. So the level of supervision depends upon the risk of the individual and the risk and needs, by the way. And some of that risk goes to whether or not they have a history of violence. Some of it goes to whether or not they're not a history of violence. In this instance, I will tell you that the individuals that were arrested, those that were submitted to the Marshal Service and to the team, Metropolitan Police Department, the FBI, and the Marshals, consisted of individuals who had either gun or violent pasts. Those individuals were under supervision. Their failure, in most instances in which we submitted them, was that they did not report for their supervision. So warrants were obtained through the court. So that is the basis of a lot of the individuals being arrested.
Out of an operation such as this, would those people have routinely been picked up, or would they have sort of fallen by the wayside?
I won't say routinely, but it happens. You know, people are arrested as a result of warrants that we obtain in D.C. Superior Court for these individuals, and people are. This was a specific example of a collaboration in which law enforcement and others, lots of partners here, went out, got together, and then law enforcement went out and arrested individuals that had warrants, many of them. Not all of them. Some on the list that we have did not have warrants, but the people from CSOSA had warrants for them.
Is this something you're going to be able to keep up with? I mean, do these more often?
God, I hope so. It takes a lot of resources, and it takes a great deal of collaboration. We have the collaboration. We need to make sure we've got the resource. Everybody has the resources to do it, because it's not easy.
In a normal week, how many people would you arrest for reoffending, or what type of people would rise to the top of your list that you would go after?
Let me
Mostly
make
violent
clear.
offenders,
Yeah,
correct?
let me make clear. CSOSA doesn't arrest anybody. Okay.
How many people would be arrested?
They come in all different types of ways, including arrests for new charges, and then the warrant is also executed at that time. So it's hard to say the number.
Good afternoon, Leslie Cooper for the Pretrial Services Agency. Very similar to the post-adjudication context, on the pretrial side, individuals are supervised based upon a risk assessment that's conducted at the time of arrest. And so the supervision protocols are driven by that risk assessment and may consist of anything ranging from regular contact with a pretrial supervision officer. It may also include behavioral health services, which would include substance use disorder treatment and mental health treatment when that is what is necessary, and then also may include, in certain circumstances, GPS supervision. The individuals that were recommended for arrest under this particular project within pretrial were those who were at highest risk of rearrest. They were not facing a new charge. These were bench warrants that we recommended for resolution through Project Trident.
Yes.
Hi, Mike Murillo, WTOP. So one question would be, you said there is the violent history of some of these people, and Mayor, this goes for you and possibly the Chief as well. You know, do you want to see more done when it comes to holding some of these individuals? Should we revisit the policies that allow for this supervised release for some individuals, especially those involved in violent crimes?
Oh, well, we've made that clear. That's exactly what Safer, Stronger addresses. It addresses holds for adults. We're not talking about juveniles here, but also for juveniles, for people who have committed, who are accused of committing a violent crime. And I'm grateful to Ms. Cooper and Mr. Tishner for actually describing what it is that supervision is and what it isn't. And frequently I'm in the community talking about, and I'm talking in our CJCC, and I'm talking about in our meetings, what are all of our federal partners do. So you can see both Mr. Tishner and Ms. Cooper, they don't work for DC government. They don't work for the chief of police. They don't work for the mayor. But they are a critical part of what we do. And so what I want to be crystal clear to the community is that we're going to do everything that we can to make our community safer. And people who are under supervision because they've been accused of a crime and who are awaiting trial, Ms. Cooper's staff is making sure that they're being in compliant. The idea behind it is that they're not going to be out there committing crimes while they're being charged with other crimes. And if they can be connected to services, they are. Mr. Tishner's group, they've already been convicted of a crime, but they're out on probation. They still have requirements before they're fully released from the care of the government. And they have to meet those commitments, because if they don't, they could be arrested. And that means that they're disrupting a new job they could have gotten. They're disrupting a lot of things. But in some cases, what's being disrupted is more crime. So that's what we're here to talk about today. If you are in one of these release statuses, you have to be compliant. You can't be committing more crimes, or you could get rearrested. And that's the point of today. Yes.
Odds that most or all of these people will be detained beyond their new court hearings tomorrow?
I don't know, Peter. And the fact is, what are you asking? Would they go back into supervision?
Right. A lot of these people were picked up for non-compliance, for not showing up, or not reporting correctly.
That's correct.
Will those people be out back on the street by Saturday?
Well, my hope is that they will be in compliance. And if that means, and that would be up to a judge to determine if they'll be in custody, hopefully it means that they will be made to re-engage with supervision. Yes, I'll take a couple more. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor. Really quickly, you kind of touched on this in the last question, but what's the takeaway for the community and families at home? 48 fugitives were arrested through this operation, but what is next? Can we expect more operations like this?
There are operations ongoing all day, every day. And some are at this level where we're talking about people who aren't compliant. Some are like the major operation that the chief and the U.S. Attorney and the FBI announced a few weeks ago that took dangerous criminals off the street, and the community is safer. Safer, noticeably safer. And so there's a range of activities, some of which you know about when they happen. This operation has been going on for 3 days. We're here today to report it, but there's always this collaborative activity that's meant to keep our community safer. Yes, last question.
Are any of the arrests in this juveniles, and then can we talk about some of the crimes that these arrests were linked to?
Well, as I mentioned, there were a range of crimes that relate to the original arrests, but these are for people who are not compliant with their supervision.
There was a case, the fugitive who escaped from George Washington University Hospital tomorrow would mark 1 month. I'm wondering if he is included in this, or any update there. Christopher Haynes.
Okay, I'll have MPD brief you. We're going to stay on topic. Okay, thank you, everybody.